What is up, guys? Ivan here with getivan.com, and I'd like to welcome you to another video in my series on static websites. My last video was on headless and static CMS platforms, doing research for those things. This video is going to be mostly about explaining agency static HTML builders and CMS, and that is, these are static HTML builders and content management systems that are explicitly for agency purposes. So the ability to manage a lot of assets, to create new assets, to manage those assets, and to distribute those assets all from one single platform. That's the ultimate goal. And those are static assets, of course. So before I get to the static HTML builders, I need to briefly touch on static CMS, because I talked about that in the last video, and I talked about headless as well. I'm talking about headless at the end. I'm talking about static first, HTML builders second, headless at the end. But I need to point out the fact that headless, here, let me go to this other website. Headless CMS and static CMS are not the same thing. There's somewhat of a blur between the two at times, but when we're talking about static CMS, it's mostly stuff like Cloud Cannon. And as you can see, it says the Cloud CMS for Jekyll. So what the static CMS does is it will take a static generator and it will build a content management system around that generator. That's typically what they do. A headless CMS, like Sanity, for example, will allow you to build structured content using JSON and to just typically JSON and APIs, and distribute that content via APIs to wherever you want. The thing about headless CMS is that they're more complicated, though. You can technically build entire websites from some of these headless CMS, but that's kind of the next step for me, and we'll be talking about that at the end, because the learning curve is more significant for those headless CMS, and there's not really a visual component. And so, again, we'll talk about that at the end. So, out of all of the services that I stumble onto, here's my static website CMS. We got Cloud Cannon, Publi, Netlify CMS. I talked about all these in the last video, and it's on my blog post, which you can find below this video or around this video. Of all this stuff, there's really three that stood out. That was Cloud Cannon, Publi, and Pulse. The others are kind of iffy, and I did not poke around in all of them. I would kind of investigate each one of these, and if I found a problem, I would kind of just abandon it and move on to something else. And so that's the process. We're not going to be built. I'm not going to at any time be fully vetting any individual solution unless I've determined that, okay, this has all the other criteria that need to proceed, that tell me this is something that's going to be worth my time. So if I don't mention something, it's because there was some sort of problem with it along the way as I was poking around. Now this one is, as you can see, it's a CMS for Jekyll. Jekyll is probably the most popular static site generator. And let's take a look at the back end. So the good things about this kind of thing is that you're able to manage all of your sites from one dashboard. Really cool. You organize them in another layer via projects. And when you're looking at a site, they automatically create a subdomain to sandbox that asset to view it easily. And you can see pages and blog posts and drafts, and you can add staff members and so on and so forth. You can add clients to your interface. You can see there's some other options down here in this area here. There's a file manager you can access. So they host the project, so you don't have to figure out static hosting. They host it. They host it on the CDN. They automatically configure SSL and so on and so forth. The problem is, now this would be perfect because the clients can actually log in. You can white label this. It costs $20 a month for the plan that you would want at the low end, and then $60 a month, I think, for the plan at the high end that comes with white labeling. yeah, so white labeling, yeah, so $20 a month to about $60 or 25 a month to 75 a month. White labeling at the max level. Clients can log in and add content. So it's a static site management interface that allows you to actually manage blog posts and stuff like that. It allows your clients to log in and manage blog posts, to my understanding. The problem is when you click to update something, they don't come with an HTML builder that you really want to use. It's all built on the backbone of Jekyll. And so they have these pre-built templates that have these containered areas where you can change these specific values, but you can't, add your own blocks and your own modules and just sort of build the page from scratch really easily. You'd probably have to go into the source code and add things from their docs and do all that. So to me, that's just like a huge waste of time. Maybe if you templatize something, then it might be worth it. I don't think that Cloud Cannon has an API though. Let's see. Let's do a quick search. I did this a while back, but I don't remember what I found. Yeah, they don't have an API. So your collections have many applications, including API, documentation, products, blogs, albums. Okay. So there might be a conditional API. Let's take another quick look. Move on to hosting. Yeah, there might be some API REST points for some of this stuff. So if you were able to spend some time and really templatize something inside of Cloud Cannon, then it might be worthwhile to jack around with this. But for the purposes of, hey, we got a client, let's build a quick site for them, we can't move things around here. And so that's a really big problem. So that was one reason I cycled Cloud Cannon out of my consideration. But like I said, if you're able to figure out the API aspects and really templatize, then it might be worth it. The problem is making customizations is too cumbersome. And so that was a real disappointment as far as Cloud Cannon goes. Similar to Cloud Cannon is a desktop application called Publi. Now this one is free. It's completely free. They try to upsell on themes, and that's, again, it's the same problem as Cloud Cannon. The themes are rigid. The adding of posts is easy. What they typically will do is they will say, okay, all of our static pages are going to be, or all of our standalone pages are going to be HTML files, and then all of our content is going to be Markdown. So it doesn't really make much sense to me. Why don't you just put it all in Markdown? I mean, why can't people jerry-rig their own visual customizations using Markdown anyways? If it's going to be a lot easier to use Markdown, just that's what it needs to be in for some of this stuff. But really, even more than that is a HTML builder, and this does not come with that. It does come with a feature to import your existing WordPress sites, though. I did not test it, disclaimer, but it seems like it could be promising. The interface is actually pretty good. I'm not going to power it up on my desktop because this is exactly what it looks like. There's a drop down where you can select your assets. You can go to posts and add new posts. I don't think that there's actually, no, wait, yeah, I think there is a way for authors to come into a particular asset. So you can assign clients to that asset and they can add content. So that's really cool. As far as these static CMS goes, these are the only solutions I ever found that actually had a facet where the client could add their own blog posts to an existing static site, which is really cool. The server, they don't have their own hosting, so you have to export to FTP. So you'd have to find a host like in the previous videos we talked about, Surge or Ziet or something like that. And they also come with integrations for GitHub and Google Cloud and some other ones that are popular. But I question some of those because I'm not sure which ones have automatic SSL configuration and stuff like that. So that would have to be something that would need to be figured out if you decide that Publi is going to work for whatever purpose. But again, the theming is what makes it difficult to say, yes, I want to use public. So I went ahead and X that out, but I'm letting you, making you aware of these things, because those are the only options I found where the clients can actually add their own content. Okay, so then we got Pulse. So Pulse is a little bit between CMS and HTML builder. They call themselves a CMS, but and that's true, but they're really kind of like a builder, is what it seemed like to me. And you have to, they output to static assets, I believe, but you have to host it. You have to host the actual Pulse application on a server. So that means that the client's asset has to be on a server, and excuse me, and then Pulse can actually work on the server. So I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but all of these HTML builders are dynamic. So they build dynamically, and then they export to static files. And so this kind of excludes Pulse from broad, building sites in large numbers applications. This would be good if you had a really big client that needed to make their own. This is one of those things that does something similar to the other ones, except that it's more along the lines of HTML builder. And so if you had a client who had a really big site and they wanted to make their own changes, then Pulse would probably be a good thing to use. But there's another service also called SiteCake that works on the exact same principle as Pulse. And the difference is that SiteCake is free. It's free, open source. I believe it's open source. You drag and drop, and it just needs to have Apache and PHP on the server. There's no need for a database or anything like that, because it exports to static files. So Pulse and SiteCake are very similar in that way. They are utilities for allowing clients to modify their own content in terms of HTML. So and also on Black Friday, Pulse had a 50% off deal. So if you wait till Black Friday, you can probably get it for $150 per year. So I just needed to mention those types of solutions here out the gate, because those are the solutions that will allow your clients to add new content. Now, the rest of these you are going to be able to add content. Your client won't be able to add content, but the visual aspects of configuring the sites are far superior. A good number of them come with either the ability, or all of them come with the ability to either export to a host, or they host it themselves, automated SSLs, Cloud CD, and stuff like that. So the first one is Sol, just called Sol by Angry Ventures. This one's completely free. It's a little bit glitchy. As you can see, the project's just disappeared, but if we refresh, they should probably reappear. Oh, no, I guess not. Anyways, Sol is completely free. I won't go into this and waste time, because I need to go as quickly as possible. But it builds like all the other HTML builders that I will show you, and then you can export it via a remote FTP server. So there's Sol. But I'm going to close that one and move forward. There's also this one, www.eb.com. This is built on Vue, and you can build your site in here and then save the files and upload it somewhere. I don't think it has an export feature, so I didn't really investigate it that much. And there's no asset management area, so I just didn't really bother with this one that much, but I just wanted to make you aware of it. Next one here, we've got Pingendo. I'm not sure how they want that to be said. This is a really interesting solution. It's only $9 a month for unlimited use, and I think it's actually created by Netlify. And so as you can see, it says here, create responsive static websites, static sites, publish and share live URLs to clients in seconds. So it's got a lot of really cool features. And it says that clients can contribute. I don't know if that means they're just giving feedback or if they're actually contributing to the asset. That was not my impression from the interface. let clients edit online. Okay, so I guess they can. I have, it's a desktop application, but my problem with this solution was that the interface was not very intuitive, and I found it to be difficult and cumbersome and unattractive. So if you wanted to figure the interface out and get through that learning curve, then you could use Pingendo or whatever, Pigendo or Pigendo, or I don't know, however they want that to be said, because they do come with, that you can build the static site and you can export it straight to Netlify and manage your assets. There's an asset management area in that capacity as a client manage some facet of clients editing online. I didn't see that back there. So this could be viable, but there's a learning curve to figuring out how to set that desktop stuff up. Anyways, let's move forward. This one here is called Whapler, and it's a visual HTML builder. As you can see here, it's a desktop application, so it looks just like this. This is another one where I kind of had some difficulties getting it to do what I wanted it to do, and I kind of got irritated with it. I'm not totally excluding it from consideration. It's clearly supported, and they're really into it. Now over here on the sidebar, you'll see all these objects, and down here you'll see a get, and that's what makes Whapler really unique among the builders that I discovered, because it's a desktop solution that allows you to manage all of your static assets from one place, but then it also has these server connection capabilities. And I didn't really I found maybe two other things that had similar capabilities, but this one was unique in terms of the desktop application. So it's a desktop application that has the ability to connect with servers in various ways, do get requests and all kinds of stuff is what it seems like. And so if you were looking to do something more advanced that had more sophisticated integrations, and you don't mind a moderate learning curve, then so you connect to any API service, then Whapler might be the way to go. Whapler, and it's not really very badly priced. I think it's like $20 a month and then $40 a month. Let's see. Yeah, so $20 a month for static responsive websites, $40 a month for dynamic websites and mobile apps. Let's see, personal license, company license, are suitable for business organizations. Okay. I guess you have multiple people logging in, you could get the $30 a month license, and just by yourself, you could get this one. Actually, I don't know how that works because the licensees are just on a PC by PC basis. It took a really long time. It took like 2 or 3 minutes for this program just to load on my computer. Anyways, that might be something worth considering because of the API capabilities. So especially if you can connect to the program using, some other API, then that would be really cool, because then you could programmatically build sites with Whapler. So that might be something I revisit and reconsider. Moving forward here, we've got Webflow. So let me go to the Webflow homepage so you can kind of see some of the copy here. But Webflow was actually something I remember a marketing peer recommending at one point, and they're really cool. Webflow actually has everything that you are looking for, with one huge downside, and that is the hosting fees are too expensive for building at scale. What did I want to show you here? Let's look at where's the prices? Prices. Here it is. So it costs a monthly fee to just use the Webflow interface. You can export the code, the HTML, and use it in other places. So that's really cool. And you can get white labeling features for your Webflow account at this level for $35 a month. So that's really affordable and definitely worthwhile. But then when it comes to hosting a single site, the fees really start to, move up. $12 a month for just the basics, and then $16 a month for more. But then you also have the opportunity to do content management, so your clients can log into their Webflow asset and add pages and stuff like that. And then the last plan is the same exact thing, just higher limitations and access to the CDN and stuff or advanced CDN. Okay, so free SSL, CDN included. So if you were going to design a really big project for a client, a nice website, I think Webflow would be a really good thing to use, because it comes with a lot of neat features and a CMS for the client to add their own content. You can also bill the clients through this interface, as you can see, client billing. And then there's a lot of other cool features. But the thing that also makes Webflow really interesting is the API. So you should be able to, I haven't looked into it in detail, but you should be able to do some programmatic building through the API. The problem is that the assets can't hold very many pages, so you can't really do very big mass page generation types of assets with something like this. That's a decent size. Either one of these is something, but it's not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. So yeah, that's Webflow. You can manage your assets all from this interface. Let me show you the designer here. So it's really straightforward. You can click here and add elements. Here's section layouts, columns, grids, lists, headings, paragraphs, just all the kinds of elements that you would expect to see in, a WordPress page builder, for example. Apparently you can even do e-commerce in here. That's pretty cool. But yeah, it's really simple. Once you add something, you select the container. As you can see, it highlights it. I suspect that all of these are based on Bootstrap, because all of these HTML builders that I've been seeing have very similar types of forms of management, and they all seem to have the same layout, where you're managing the components over here, and then you're managing the styling over here. And we'll get more into that as we go along here. Let's see what happens if we click publish. Okay. So you select something like body here, and then you go over to, let's see here, it's going to be either in style. Here's background. So we can just select this color, and bam, it changes the color of the background. And everything you add is modified either in this style or in the element settings or options, or however they articulated it. So it looks like there's triggers. That's cool. It's really simple, and you can design a site really quickly once you get comfortable with an HTML builder like this. Okay, let's close this. So just to finish up on Webflow, has everything you need. The problem is that you can't really scale. You can't really build lead gen assets because it's too expensive on the hosting side of things. You can't really programmatically build client websites because, again, it's too expensive to deal with the hosting. But if you want to do a big project, then Webflow would be a really, really good choice. So moving forward from there, Without Code is very similar to Webflow, except it's a lot cheaper in terms of the hosting fees and what have you. It costs $9 a month for this basic plan for managing your account, and then the hosting fees are down here. They're $9 a month per site, and the site limit is unlimited, and it comes with all the good things you want. Now, one of the things that's really cool about Without Code, it comes with a content management, I guess a login for your client, and it also comes with a custom branding, so white label for that your client can see, your brand when they go to manage their content for their asset or whatever. And then it also, and there's an asset management area, I believe. I don't remember making an account for this service. Maybe I didn't. Hold on, let me see. I guess I didn't. I'm assuming there's, sorry about that. I'm unlimited site, so I'm assuming there's an asset management area, just like the other one. I think I didn't make an account because I didn't want to pay. I've decided that I did not want to pay $9 a month per asset, but on paper, it's got a lot of cool things. It's also got this white label tutorials. So the tutorials, I did look at the tutorials. They apply to, adding content, all the things that the client can do from your white label dashboard or whatever. The white label tutorials are not branded, and so you don't have to create educational materials for the client. You can just include those, set it up, and pretty much ready to go. There's no client building feature. I did email their support about some things, and they told me they didn't have a client building feature, so you can't bill your clients through the interface. You have to build them through something else like Charge Desk. They also, excuse me, golly, sorry about that. They also don't have an API. So that's kind of a downside if you wanted to integrate it with something unique or use the API to create large quantities of assets or something back there. So without code is an interesting solution if you're looking for something similar to Webflow and don't want to pay as much and have less restrictions. Then this, I think, is a good choice. I would still probably use Webflow instead of this. It's more expensive, but it's also a lot more robust. But that's without code. Now that kind of finishes off. So we kind of looked at, to recap here, we kind of looked at a combination between static website CMS that coupled generators with CMS. And then we also looked at some HTML builders that include CMS features, but that are kind of more expensive, really, to pay for their subscriptions and their hosting fees. So those are great in that, for those CMS reasons mainly, and you could maybe templatize the static CMS stuff and with CloudCan, and then maybe roll a little bit broader. And then in the others, you would obviously want to only be building really big sites. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the main event. So that is explicit. Now, I know I did talk about some basic, where's my static HTML builders like Sol and Whapler and Triple V, and there's some other ones I didn't talk about here like Mockflow, and these are mostly, I think, for wireframing. But now I want to talk to you about Grapedrop here. Grapedrop is really a big player in terms of consideration. It has some unfortunate downsides. Grapedrop is based on Grape.js. So if you go to grapejs.com, I think it is, it's a free open source HTML builder framework that you can host on a server and incorporate it with other apps and what have you. And it's just really nice. It has really nice block elements, components you can add to the page. Really nice styling and customization features. It appears to be based on Bootstrap. I'm not entirely sure, though. A lot of styling features, as you can see. It's responsive. It comes with some SEO tools built in, Google Fonts. Supposedly, I couldn't find this section. And the features that you get are pretty wild here. So these two plans don't really make a whole lot of sense to me. 15 pages or sites, or 50 pages or sites. But then at $75 a month, you get unlimited pages and sites, unlimited form submissions, unlimited blocks, domains. Everything's unlimited at $75 a month. And it also comes with an API. So when we look at the API here, it has a project section where you can create new projects or update existing projects. And it has a section for creating new blocks or updating existing blocks. So technically, you could integrate something like this with Parabola, and you could programmatically create entire websites and aspects of websites, different blocks and components inside the actual pages. You could probably create a nice little interface for doing that. Like basically, you could probably create your own CMS template to some degree, like in a Google Sheet, and then you could just hand the client the Google Sheet template. So you could actually upsell for something like this, and then you could just copy their template, use Parabola, and charge them to make edits every time they want to hit that button to submit changes. So that's an option. But the thing that really got me excited about this was the ability to create entire websites programmatically. So you could import this into Parabola, and you could set up Parabola to basically do something like grab values from a spreadsheet and then use those values to create websites and block elements based on the values from the spreadsheet. So for example, you could scrape Yellow Pages and grab a bunch of business names and addresses and phone numbers, and you could programmatically create 1,000 different websites with that business name, with that address, and with that phone number, and with a generic form. And then you could maybe go in and grab those links to those websites, and you could say text all of the businesses who you did mobile phone number validation on, and say, hey, would you like to rent this website for, I don't know, some such amount of money every month? So this, using something like Grapedrop, which is an HTML builder that includes your hosting, includes automatic SSLs, has an API, you can take web design and sales to a whole other level with something like this. It's probably not what I'm going to start with because I don't really want to pay $75 a month out the gate, but it's still really, really cool. Here's the area for projects where you can manage all of your assets. They have an asset section for managing images and stuff like that. And the rest of this is pretty boilerplate. But you can create a project and then clone it. So you can create a website or a template, then clone it, and just go in and make changes. If I click here into the project, I'll show you real quick what it looks like in the editor. The editor is really pleasant to deal with. So this is just a basic thing that I did. Over here on the left, you've got pages, and you can click this to add new pages really easily. Then you can click this cog to modify the favicon and project name, where the domain is linked to. Then this is one thing that is really cool. It creates a sandbox on the subdomain, and if it were white labeled, it would be way better. But still, every asset you create is on a subdomain. So once you if you did the programmatic method I described, you could have 1,000 different pages for a category on this subdomain, and then you could just text the business the subdomain, and yeah, they would see the Grapedrop brand. That's kind of a downside, but then you could, basically show a preview of the actual site, and if they want to rent it, then you could actually have an API, again using something like Parabola. Whenever they make the purchase, like say in Charge Desk, they could have Charge Desk maybe trigger something in a Parabola flow, and then in a form place all the necessary information for whatever they want to modify, and then maybe send a notification to, have the client point the domain or whatever. There's just a lot you could do to really automate the entire process of getting local businesses set up on a really simple website, but doing it at a huge scale that probably nobody out there is doing. Anyways, so then there's a generic SEO section. I didn't see a sitemap section, and so that's kind of a downside. Not really a huge deal if your average client site is small, or if you're just building landing pages, for example, which you could really easily do with something like this. Click on the block section. You can see there's all the basic stuff you need. Nav bar, code, countdown, forms. So they take the forms, and depending on your plan, you have a certain number of form submissions you can do, but you can design the forms straight in here also. Sections, all the regular stuff you're used to seeing. And you select an element, and then you can come over here to the style manager, go to background, click on a color, change it to some other color. I'm going to click on this header. You can go to the style manager, look at the typography, change the text here. And it says there's Google fonts. I'm not sure how to access them. I didn't really look into it deeply. And just all kinds of basic style stuff here. So this may be a small learning curve for getting used to this kind of thing and where it's at. Everything is based on blocks or components or however you want to call it. So it all stacks on top of each other. You can't just drag something wherever you want it to be. So it has to be sequential, or you have to put spaces or dividers in different places if you want to get down to a certain area. But it's still a really amazing solution because it also comes with hosting. So when you can publish this to their servers, and it's automatic SSL. I emailed them about the CDN. They don't have CDN incorporated yet, but they told me they're working on it right now. So Grapedrop is really cool, and I think it has the potential to be something that could help you to take both Grapedrop and Whapler, because of their API capabilities. You should have the opportunity to scale web design to a whole new level, like I've been describing. Now, I do want to talk about one more solution, and then we'll briefly touch on these Headless CMS. And that solution is Bootstrap Studio. So after I've been seeing all this Bootstrap stuff, it occurred to me there's something special about Bootstrap, and that's when I discovered Bootstrap Studio. And this is one of those things where it's hard to find these solutions because the keywords being used are different everywhere. But Bootstrap Studio, if you thought Grapedrop was really cool and had a lot of potential, this is going to blow your mind. It's a desktop solution, first of all. And so there are certain downsides to that, but it comes with a lot of templates. When you purchase it, the interface is almost not the exact same. It's very similar to Grapedrop. You got and some of the other ones we looked at, you got your components and your modules on the left, and you've got your styling on the right. And I'll show that to you in a second. I've got it open right now. I didn't even realize if you click this button, you can run a browser demo, so you can test it before you decide you want to purchase it or not. It's a one-time fee of $60 for a lifetime license, lifetime updates. And I purchased it before I realized there was a demo, but it turned out it worked out. There's templates it comes with, a lot of different fancy Bootstrap components that look really nice. You can drag and drop various things, create your own components. There's an online library of components that are built by a community that's part of Bootstrap Studio. So some people have built some really nice components that you can just import. Real-time preview on your local IP, on a local IP on a particular port. You can edit code, you can export code. Also, you can export code. I believe you can export code in Grapedrop also. And I guess that means you can import basic HTML and CSS too. So you can manage you can manage any static assets inside of this, and you can just have it published onto their hosting. So it's really convenient. As you can see, import existing websites. One-click publishing to their hosting platform, and they use, I'm not sure what they use to actually host. They call it next-gen hosting. I don't know what that means, but they have some really cool features. They use Cloudflare as a CDN, and it's automated SSLs. And then there's other things like you can include passkeys and all that stuff. But here's what's crazy about this. It's totally free. So you pay $60 one time for a lifetime license with lifetime updates. And it also comes with one-click publishing to the host, and it's completely free. So you can, this is unlimited assets for completely free. It's really mind-blowing. It's the best deal I've yet to see on anything related to static hosting and building of assets and managing of assets. It also comes with some really cool animation types of features. I'll show you that in just a moment here. And as you can see, free upgrades forever. Everything is included, lifetime, for $60, including hosting, lifetime hosting. So it's obviously there are other static services that do lifetime or that are free. I get that, but it's just mind blowing to me that they do it all for one fee, whereas all the other services we've been looking at, they're trying to charge you, you know, like Grapedrop is $75 a month, and you know Webflow is $35 a month to manage, and then you know $12 to $35 a month for each asset to host it. I mean, they're just being greedy as heck, you know. But this, whoever makes this, I mean, it's awesome. Gracious, 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 you know. So this is what it looks like. Don't be intimidated. It is actually really simple. It's just like with Grapedrop. As you can see, the way that they select assets is the same. So that's why I think a lot of these are built on Bootstrap. When we select the body here, you can come over here to and some of the elements, like the taxonomy of the actual like HTML file overview, is over here. So you can drag your components to a specific area in the overview. So you don't have to do them on page. You can actually stack them in the layers. So like, as you can see, this is the top layer, and then under HTML is body, and then under body is header, and then under header is this paragraph that I put below the header, but I could put this below the body instead if I wanted to, and move this up here. And so you can adjust the way that things are organized in this little window here, and just the way that it's laid out. You don't click in anything and wait for anything to load. It's all just right there in terms of the dashboard, it's all there on the first tier. So you just you want to change an option, you just click on the tab and just change the option. And then look up here, the same overview is right here. So if you want to change styling really quickly, you can do so without having to go scroll through and find the element, click the option button. It's all just naked there. So it's really cool in that way. Let me select the body here. You can just click the main page. And then you see the background color here. You just change it really easily like this. And you can change the global settings for various things like this. If I select the header, I can select on font family. I can go to add font, and it accesses over 900 Google fonts that you can search through. And you can also import web fonts right here, as you can see. So it's just really convenient. It stacks like the other things do. So some of the things are drag and drop, of course, but on the elements on page, obviously, just like other things out there, you have to kind of order them. There's an option section here for header where you can then go in and say, okay, I want the H tags, set the H tags here. And then I want the display font size to change, so you don't have to mess with the pixel sizes too much. You can kind of just eyeball it with these display presets, really convenient. Do the alignment here, left, right, center. Colors, there's just all kinds of really convenient things, and it's very, very simple to find. I mean, it took me just a few minutes to just get into this. There's an animation section. You can trigger animations based on criteria. And then over here is the components section, the modules, there's an online area here where you can search for components online. And these are things that other people have made that are typically of a higher quality. Here's a Bootstrap cards, elegant registration form, Bootstrap chat. So yeah, and here's the main components that are built into it, UI components that are sort of, I guess, pre-built. Then you got your typical text components, image components, controls like buttons and drop downs, grids, so you can create rows and columns with this. That I'm used to that kind of thing in WordPress editors. Containers, cards. So there's a thumbnail, card with overlay, pages, header, footer. So here's a header of a page, footer of a page, main area of a page, article page, pagination, tables, forms. And by the way, the forms unlimited. There's you can build. Oh, look at all this stuff. You can build tons of things with the form, because it's all just HTML. It's just HTML form building, and they use a relay system. So you can come up here to Cloud and you can go to Manage Form Recipients, and all you have to do is put in an email, and it will relay to that email. So it's amazing, right? It's just, you got to be the best thing. I don't know how I can get much better than this, to be honest. With the exception of the API, there's no API with this. Of course, it's a desktop solution. Most of them don't. Obviously, Whapler does, but there's a section, social buttons here, and then there's like you can embed videos, and they got a breadcrumb section here. And so there's all kinds of, just a lot of modules. Just all the stuff you're used to in WordPress. There's similar elements here, and I know this looks hunky-dory, but you can come over here to New, and you can pick from these templates. Like this is a beautiful admin dashboard template that they've included, and I mean, you can import any kind of HTML and CSS into this program. And when you click on Cloud, you can go to Manage Websites, and you can manage all of your websites from this interface. And what's really cool is when you make a new website project, it comes up onto this top bar. So you can actually manage multiple websites. Like here's a dashboard I was looking at, the admin dashboard. You can manage all these web design projects from the top tabs, and then you can manage the pages from these drop downs here. And you can go to create new pages and so on and so forth. And as far as, so this one has everything. It has their own hosting, so you can come up here to click publish, go to publish options, and deal with it in this way, and it goes straight to their stuff. You can export the code, and there's all kinds of options for how you want to export. Here's some SEO features. You can generate a sitemap. This is the only solution I found that will allow you to generate a sitemap. I did not see that in any other solution, though it might exist. And I'm not sure where you would change the meta title for specific page. Or, well, actually, you know what? We're looking at a specific page right now. So these are probably the settings for this specific page. You see, that's called test. So that might be meta title for the whole site. So there's a little bit of a learning curve for different things, but I'm sure that it's enough. It's enough to say, okay, this is really legit. Head content. Oh yeah, so you can add other code to the HTML for in the header, for analytics codes and stuff like that. And then obviously you can click down here and you can copy this. You can copy the HTML, and you can probably export this CSS via this section here, and you can put this into hosting you want or use it somewhere else. But there's also a section in File under Import where you can import components. You can import HTML, you can import images, CSS, JavaScript, fonts. So pretty sure that you could also use this to, like if you had some WordPress assets that you wanted to use and manage in this area, then you could import, you could, use a plugin to export the files and import them into this area to manage all that stuff. So it's really, really cool. The desktop license is associated with my email account. So I'm assuming that it saves all that to your email account, the account that's associated with your email in terms of the hosting and how that works. Some of this stuff I don't remember. I'm not a master of this. I just discovered this. Okay, so just a disclaimer there. Duplicate, that's nice. So you can duplicate projects to some degree, and maybe pages. Anyways, I think that's basically all for this one. Delete license key, manage devices. Okay. Well, that's nice. Register devices. So maybe you could register other accounts and then through some means or another, and then maybe your whole team could work. Probably, your whole team couldn't work in the same environment, but maybe they could view the same cloud sites to manage them from these different instances. So maybe like you could all publish to the same general cloud account, but then you're all working with different devices, different instances. I'm not sure. So as far as mass page building goes, because I know that's a concern for some, the API methods would be the way to go. So probably Whapler, Grapedrop, but there's also a way to do it with this. Now, I'm not sure if there's a convenient way to import mass like that, but the way that I came up with is really kind of ghetto. Basically, you could copy the HTML of a page template, like this one, for example. I mean, this is nothing, but you could copy a template, and then for the variated values that you want to create, you could then go in and you could actually use a mass page plugin to then sort of cut the HTML in half and then, you know, create 3 different boxes. Like, let me see if I can give you an example here. Here's a basic mass page or keyword multiplier. So, for example, you could go HTML block, and this is like, say, 50 lines of HTML here. And then here's where you would go, okay, I want this keyword like Fort Worth, Arlington, Dallas, etc. And then here's another HTML block, 2. And then let's say you had another variable you wanted to set, like, lawn care or marble countertops, whatever. And then you had another HTML block. Like, you could use a simple thing like this to do something like that, but you could also use the command line keyword multiplier that I provided in the tip section of my blog. So if you check that out, that one's capable of doing a large amount of information, and basically you can just click go and it'll mash all those variables together with that generic HTML. So this is kind of a very ghetto way of stringing together, stuff when you don't have the luxury of spin tags, for example. So if you had a tool that allowed you to do that conveniently, and I don't think you can do anything like that in Scrapebox. You might be able to, I don't know. If you didn't have the convenience of a special tool, then you can do it with a keyword multiplier. And then basically you can copy that HTML and you'd have to figure out a way to sort of like separate it. So you'd have to probably create a character that separates all those HTMLs, like a unique set of characters. And then you could save those in different files somehow. I'm not sure exactly how to do that, or maybe paste them into use those as a delimiter to paste those into a spreadsheet, and on and on and on and on. Eventually, anyways, you could find a way to use a keyword multiplier to create a bunch of HTML files, is the point, that have variated data, and then you could just come into the feature here and just go File, Import HTML. So super, well, it's simple in concept. Well, this whole thing is simple, I think. But then, doing the mass page thing, that would require a bidding of a particular method. So maybe look out for that from me in the future as I dig deeper into this. But this is, what is this called again? Bootstrap Studio. And I think it's got to be the best thing overall. $60 one time, unlimited hosting, unlimited form submissions. It's just killer. Now I want to touch briefly. I know I've been talking for there's been a huge amount of information for me to cover, but I'm going to touch briefly on these headless CMS. Let's see, what is this guy's description is per space. It's possible to build more than one site in a space, but our recommendation is to keep projects around. Okay. This guy was giving me an answer to something because I was asking about this headless CMS. So headless CMS, it allows you to create various structures, content structures, and then you can export those content structures using APIs to wherever you want them to go. And typically in these kinds of solutions like Storyblock, you can create different containers for different assets and that represent pages. And actually the sophistication of some of these content structures in these headless CMS are the most advanced I've ever seen. Like nothing, I've never seen anything more advanced. The kind of content that you can create with a headless CMS is really deep and sophisticated. The problem is that they're not really very user-friendly. They require a somewhat moderate or more advanced, maybe not more advanced. You don't necessarily have to be very savvy with code. It's just basic JSON handling. So it's pretty simple, but you have to learn their interfaces. You have to learn how each of these things works, and that kind of takes time. I actually installed Cockpit, one of these, onto a VPS server. I spent a little bit of time to do that because it seemed like this one had the ability to do what I was looking for, but even this one's not visual. So you can create forms and all kinds of things in a lot of these programs, but they're kind of confusing. So some of these, or not some of these, probably most of them, are free and open source if you install it on your own server. They have a free and open source option for installing it on your own server, but then they have an option for paying to use it on the cloud, which is usually a ripoff because it's the exact same thing as installing it on a server. Anyways, if we look at the collections here, you can come in here, add fields and permissions, and sort of structure the concept of the content. But there's a lot that goes into understanding how to modify that stuff. For the most part, from what I've seen, it's like you have to add basic JSON or you have to add HTML, and so you almost have to create a dashboard to be able to visually add certain things in the way that it really needs to be done. That's what I don't really get about headless CMS, is that it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me why they don't just add the visual component, because it's a pain otherwise. And I think the reasoning is that, various people can use the API structuring to create their own internal dashboard for adding content to their assets. But to me, it just communicates to laziness, frankly, because if they added an interface for people to add their own assets, their own websites, their own static properties, then they wouldn't have to create their own we wouldn't have to create our own dashboard. We could just use their dashboard. And Storyblock claims to be the only headless CMS with a visual editor, But when you get back there, that's not really true. I mean, it has a visual preview, but it's not really an editor per se. When you look at some of this stuff, it kind of shows you, okay, here you can define this schema, and then it will show you kind of what it looks like as you're doing it. But that still involves like a partial amount of coding to some degree. So you could maybe design something in an HTML builder and then come over to this section, and then this thing would allow it. This is API driven, content management. So something like this, you could probably create NAS page sites really in significant with a significant level of quality. So this is kind of the next step, but I'm a little bit hesitant because it seems like a waste of time to me. But if it could be figured out, it might be something that could be really significant. You can actually build an entire website from a good number of these things. The problem is that it's difficult to, it doesn't have a visual HTML builder built into them. So it's interesting because in a way it's kind of like WordPress, with WordPress you can kind of build your site and you manage your content. And with these, you can do that too, except that these headless CMS are really more about structuring this content and pushing the content to other places. So it's interesting. It's kind of the next step, but what would be cool is to see a headless CMS that allowed you to build the actual site and the actual content in more pleasing viewables, with HTML builders. And technically, you could do that yourself when you use their server, their free open source solutions. A lot of them do that. You can just download it for free and use it and put it on your server. And then I guess you could integrate something like Grape.js, and then you'd be good to go. But that's just a lot of trouble. And the online interfaces for being able to manage content for all of these, I found them to be not intuitive. So we'll have to stick a pin in that headless CMS. For now, what I'm going to do is sort of conclude that, what's this here? Oh, Unite CMS. I think that the best route, and this is something I'm going to be vetting, it's going to take me time to vet and get some clients, and that's why I wanted to do this sort of intermediary video between, before the final solution, because I wanted to provide a research report on all this stuff, and then after a number of months, then I'll be able to say this is exactly what I'm doing, and this is working really, really well. But I'm feeling like somewhere between Whapler, Grapedrop, and Bootstrap Studio is the perfect combination of everything that we want to do as agencies who want to build and distribute these static websites and manage them all from one place. Right now, I'm really excited to be working with Bootstrap Studio, and I think I'm going to be focusing on this for a little bit. And then in some spare time, I'm going to be maybe looking back at the Whapler API capabilities, maybe seeing, okay, how do I figure out how to design here? Because I did not enjoy Whapler as much as the others. But if the API feature is powerful enough, it might be better. We probably have to figure out hosting. I'll have to look back into that. We'll have to see. And then maybe once I got some money coming in, it would be worthwhile to look back at the automation side of Grapedrop's API capabilities, or maybe Whapler's API capabilities. But right now, I think the way to go is Bootstrap Studio. You can manually do, create sites and do a lot of things, and it's all kind of integrated into one interface. And then moving forward from here, that's when it'll be time to figure out, okay, can we automate this entire process and get it to a numbers game, you know? So that is pretty much it. I appreciate you watching. I think that kind of concludes this video. If you have any thoughts or feedback, feel free to contact me, and I thank you for your time. Bye-bye.